All right, I think we can get started now. It's a few minutes after our start time. So again, welcome everyone to our Statistics and Data Science 8-part webinar series. Today is our concluding session with our panel. We have our wonderful panelists here. So I'll be doing a brief intro to Women Who Code. We'll have introductions of the moderators, which is myself and Sumana, and then we'll have introductions of the panelists, and then we'll get right into the questions. So our mission of Women Who Code is to inspire women to excel in their technology careers. Our vision is a world where women are representative as technical executives, founders, VCs, board members, and software engineers. Our target are engineers with 2 or more years of experience that are looking for support and resources to strengthen their influence and also level up in their own careers. Our code of conduct is very important. Women Who Code is an inclusive community dedicated to providing an empowering experience for everyone who participates in or supports our community. Our events like today are intended to inspire women to excel in technology careers, and anyone who is there for this purpose is definitely welcome. You can read the full version and access the incident report form at this link. So Women Who Code has 230,000 members, 70 networks in 20 countries, members in more than 97 countries, more than 10,000 events, daily conference tickets at more than $1,000, scholarships for $2 million, access to jobs and resources, and infinite connections. And currently, our movement is that as the world is changing, we can be a connecting force that creates a sense of belonging while the world is being asked to isolate. And here are some member benefits. So we have coding resources. So all of our sessions are recorded and uploaded to YouTube. We have leadership opportunities to expand your skills and enhance your career. A global community, as I mentioned, with so many networks in various countries. Our Women Who Code job board, where our opportunities are always listed. Scholarships and free tickets, as well as Applaud Her, where we can give and receive recognition for professional achievements from industry peers and leaders. So again, today is our series finale with our panel discussion. So we have with us 4 panelists today, and Sumana and I will be moderating the panel. And thank you to our volunteers. They've helped us throughout all of our sessions, and with this series could not have happened without all of their time and help. And shout out to our sponsor as well, the Home Depot, who has sponsored us for previous events in the past for the Women Who Code Data Science track. And we also have some past series here, our Introduction to Machine Learning, Advanced Machine Learning series as well, where you can sort of brush up on your machine learning skills and sort of, take it beyond today's series. And I'll pass it off to Sumana, and she will introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. Sumana over here. Thank you for the starting the introduction, Rishika. Sumana here. I am a data scientist at this company called ServiceNow. I'm based out of San Francisco. And I've been part of Women Who Code for about 4 odd years now, pushing more educational content for our community. I'm excited to be here to moderate this conversation with some really talented women in this field with diverse backgrounds. I'm super excited to be part of this conversation. Passing it back to you, Rishika.
All right, thanks, Sumana. So I have been part of Women Who Code for, I think I'm coming up on a year. I think I joined the community right when the pandemic started. So it's crazy, it's been a year, but I'm finishing up my master's in computer science at UC Santa Cruz. And I actually came from sort of a non-traditional background. I came from I have a bachelor's in psychobiology. So one of the key points for today is sort of transitioning to data science from a different career. So I think it's a really important thing. And with data science being such a field with so many diverse applications, I think, I'm going to learn a lot from today's panel, from all of the insight and all of the experiences that will be shared by our panelists. So thank you everyone for being here. And then I'll pass it on to our panelists to introduce themselves. So first we have Angela.
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Angela Gaitano. I'm a data science manager at Medtronic currently. My undergraduate degree is in mathematics and statistics, and my master's degree is in data science. I've been working in the healthcare analytics industry for about 7 years. during which time I transitioned from analytics roles into more data science roles. And now I serve as manager to a data science team at Medtronic. I'm very excited to be here, to be invited to share my experience. Hopefully some of it is helpful to some of you.
All right, thanks, Angela. Next, we have Laura.
Hi, I'm Laura. At the minute, I'm a freelance data specialist. I do a lot of different data things, including data science. I run my own company called Tech by Humans, and we have a tech education wing, which is called Taught by Humans. So I do a lot of teaching people data skills. I'm also pursuing a PhD in AI education. My background is I have a math and statistics degree as well, and a master's in robotics, and I have a bunch of experience in different fintech and edtech companies, and I'm really excited to be here today as well.
Great, thanks, Laura. Next, we have Madhurima.
Hello, everyone. I'm Madhurima Nath. Currently, I'm a data scientist at a technology-focused consulting company where I mostly work with cloud-based platforms like AWS, Azure, Google Cloud. Before coming into industry, I was in academia. I hold a master's in quantum physics from India and a PhD in statistical physics in Virginia Tech. While I was in academia, my focus was computational modeling of dynamical systems, predicting epidemic outbreaks, analyzing interacting magnetic systems. I have also worked on various cross-disciplinary machine learning projects. I was also a physics instructor at one point of time and participated in many outreach programs. I'm really looking forward to this panel. Thank you for having me, and hopefully this information is helpful for some of you.
All right, thank you. And lastly, we have Vandana.
Hey, Vandana, sorry to cut you off. I think you're on mute.
So hi, everyone. I'm Vandana Srivastava, and I'm a founder and CEO of an educational services company. So I have a master's in 3 different disciplines. I started with a pure mathematics master's from India, and then I did my master's in computational mathematics from Arizona State University. And then I did my MBA in financial management from Pace University, New York. And I worked at IBM corporate headquarters at in Armonk, and I have mainly a teaching background. So I worked as assistant professor in different engineering colleges in India. I was a mathematics and computer science assistant professor. And then I have taught in IIT Delhi also. I was a guest faculty there. And then I was the vice president at a startup in Bay Area. And then since 2019, I'm running my company. And it's my pleasure to be here. I hope we guide you in something. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Vandana, and thank you everyone for the introductions. So with that, I think we'll jump right into the questions for our panel. So we'll get started with the first section, which is about transitioning to data science. So as I mentioned, I sort of came from a non-technical or non-traditional background where I kind of had to navigate my way into this new field of data science and machine learning. And all of you have sort of come from similar paths where you kind of had different career trajectory paths that eventually led you into where you are now in data science. So if you can each elaborate on what actually helped you and pushed you to pursue this field. So we can start off with anyone who would like to kick it off.
I'm sure I will kick us off here with some of my experience. My hope is that in telling my story, I don't think there's any one magic answer, but maybe in sharing my experience, you can find some inspiration from it. I think the short version to answer this question is it took me persistence. I had to basically keep pushing for that data science role. Even though I, kept finding myself in these more data analytics roles. and I just had to keep pushing. So I will share that experience with you. So for some background, my interest in data science really started in my undergraduate program during my math and stats degree, where I started to begin understanding data science as a career field that is high in demand, good compensation, and it blends statistics and technology, which is perfect. I was very interested in stats, and being able to apply it through very interesting technologies is really what I'm passionate about. So I began doing some independent research during my undergraduate degree on predictive analytics, so I was able to really, outside of my undergraduate program, start exploring tools like R, and was able to work with a local hospital to analyze some hospital data and really just start diving in and getting some practice. At the time, I was very enthusiastic to begin an internship and a full-time job in any role that described itself as relating to data mining, predictive analytics, assuming that that meant that I would be using statistical analysis and the predictive modeling from my schooling as part of my job. So I found a role with these kind of titles and accepted, but my assumption was very wrong. The day-to-day role that I ended up in was actually more based on running simple SQL queries on health plan claims data and creating Excel spreadsheets of those query results. That's pretty much what it was. I did dabble in some automation, screen scraping technology as part of that role, but it was not the core expectation of my job there. I soon realized that predictive algorithms means different things to different companies and can often be used in job descriptions to attract enthusiastic entry-level candidates like myself at the time. But it's not to say that that role still wasn't challenging at times and wasn't very rewarding, because it was. I still gained a lot of great experience, like foundational experience, and became very comfortable with SQL, which ended up being really the core element to further propel my career into data science. So with that experience, I started a new role at a different company, again, with the hope of pursuing more advanced analytics in another healthcare company. While it was more advanced in that, the breadth of the reports and requests were much larger, more complex, often having to work with data end to end from completely raw, unknown data all the way to actionable conclusions. But I was still not doing any predictive analytics necessarily. Everything was retrospective, mostly health plan financial type of analysis. But my comfort with SQL and then the growing experience in working with various stakeholders in the company really helped solidify my reputation. So I just kind of was persistent in, proving myself as a hard worker, someone who can solve problems no matter what was thrown at me. So I was beginning to try to plan my next move to seek out the data science role, and the company ended up announcing that they were going to start a new data science team. So I'm like, aha, that's the ticket right there. So after several months of convincing and pleading with my boss at the time, along with starting a master's degree in data science to further prove my interest in that type of work, I was finally given permission to make the transfer. And then in that team, breadth of work expanded, more project oriented rather than ad hoc reporting. And through this, I simultaneously learned the data science techniques, both in my master's program and on the job, which was very helpful. And I highly recommend pursuing any kind of job or internship during your data science academia programs, where you can, go back and forth between learning the theory, the academic side of it, and applying it in your job sometimes in the same day. It was just really super helpful. So I gained the data analysis skills, predictive modeling skills with R and Python, some ML skills, text analytics, project management, and I got assigned to more and more complex projects, sometimes requiring me to lead cross-functional projects. And this is what ended up leading me into management, was more of the coordination of more complex projects. Finally, to conclude, I would just say that I'd like to highlight that starting out as a data analyst is not a bad thing. It actually set me up really well. It can be a very effective way to navigate to data science. The foundational skills that you obtain as a data analyst can set you up very well to excel in these data science roles down the road. And I think that's it. Thank you.
I can go next. So I actually have quite a similar path, which is why I think Rowan sounds good next. However, I genuinely kind of fell into this, which is probably not what people want to hear, but I decided between a mathematics degree and a sociology degree whenever I went to university, and decided on mathematics because I found it really effortless and I didn't think I'd have to study very much, which is probably not the reason you should pick a degree. However, it worked well for me. And I was at university during the last recession, the 2009 recession. I started uni just after that. So there was a big push on us finding a job. And I'd had my heart set on becoming an accountant and working for a Big Four company. I think just because someone visited my high school from one of them and I thought they were the coolest person I'd ever met. So I was advised to take a placement year during my degree to help with job prospects, and I applied quite late. And the job I applied for, I thought I was applying to be a forensic accountant. And in the job interview, they were like, tell us why you want this job. And I went off on my rehearsed spiel about forensic accounting. And they were like, you know, this is a data analytics role. I was like, no. And yeah, still somehow got the job, because when they described it to me, I was like, oh, that sounds amazing, and was very excited by it. So I worked for a year for PwC as a forensic data analyst. If you're from the UK, you've probably heard of the News International phone hacking scandal. So I was actually working on that and doing analytics for that. And my work was in the newspaper, and it was super exciting. Very long hours, but very exciting. I also fell in love with SQL during this. That was the first coding language I'd properly learned. It's still one of my favorites now. I self-taught myself during my job. Because I just felt like an imposter the whole time, because I was like, I've tricked them into giving me a data analytics job, and I don't know why. Even when they offered me a graduate job and I went back, I still ended up leaving after a couple of months, because I was like, I've tricked them into this. And this is a theme throughout my entire career. So I then bounced around jobs a little bit, trying to get the job that I felt give me enough technical skills. So I tried to be a statistical consultant in market research. That didn't really work for me. I went into advertising, and I was called an insight analyst, but it was like a pure data science role. I was just building models all the time. It was really great. However, advertising wasn't quite for me. So I moved into a big company. So I thought that was where I would fit best. So I moved to WorldPay, who are payments, and I worked in data analytics and payments for a year, loved it, did some models, that kind of cool stuff that I could do. But I was a data analyst getting to do this, if that makes sense. I then actually moved into a team called Innovation. And it was innovation technology. So I was building really cool stuff like proof of concepts, learning how to do VR, but I was always really focused on data, building models, just getting to play basically for 4 years. And that was great for me, because I am now a very confident developer, whereas before that I would have been a self-taught Python developer who would have felt quite anxious in job interviews, whereas now I know I can code, I know you can throw whatever at me. I decided to go back to university to do a master's and a PhD due to imposter syndrome. Basically, I didn't do myself justice in job interviews because I just felt like I shouldn't be there. So I went back, and I'm in the middle of my PhD now, but I've taken jobs since then, and it's been great for my confidence. So I've kind of stumbled into data science, and it's kind of what I've landed on. It's the mix between, I guess, the people side of things, which I've realized I love. So like dealing with stakeholders, giving presentations, working with junior members of staff, and the technical side of writing really complicated code that I also love. So yeah, that's my journey.
Hi, I can go next. It's very different from what you guys said, but I come from a very pure academia setting, and I kind of stumbled upon data science. To give you a background why I say that is, I was always interested in doing physics. I enjoyed doing math a lot, but it made more sense to me to use the math to understand a problem, a physical problem. So I liked physics more, and I didn't also have to do too many abstract things in math. It made sense. So while in undergrad and masters, I tried out different areas of physics and trying to understand what I liked more. And I realized I wanted to do more research in interacting systems, like how two or three things interact with each other and what is the effect of that in overall picture. And I had no idea about data science or machine learning. And I always thought that was something only hardcore computer science students who know how to code in C++ or Java can do. So when I started working with my PhD advisor, I found this like it's really nice lab. It was very cross-disciplinary, and we were working with very real world data. And it was not just simulation on like a very nice and clean set of data, but actual real world data. And my advisor was like, do you want to try this project out, irrespective of whether it is related to my thesis or not? And he was very nice about me going and talking with other professors, doing projects with other students. So that kind of opened my scope, and I learned a lot from all of them. And I realized, talking to other statistics students and professors or computer science students, that the work that I was already doing, that was simulating something using Monte Carlo methods, or predicting or forecasting, data modeling, that's everything that data science is doing. So I started Googling more about what data science is and can you get a career in that? And that's kind of how I learned into this field. And I realized that the skills that is required for a data scientist job is like most of the technical skills I can just transfer from what I did during my PhD. Like I was already coding in R, I was doing bunch of simulations, I was doing a lot of modeling, I was already using R and Python and doing a lot of queries for the real world data from using SQL. So I was like, oh, why not give it a try and see if I can, get something in to work with in a very real world setting and not just in academia. And I always liked working in different areas, working with different set of data. And my job at this consulting firm gives me exactly that. Like I can today I'm working with this like financial data, next day I'm working with some health data, next day I'm working with some consumer product data. So there are different projects and I learn a lot from each of these projects. And mostly I do POCs, which is then being transferred to a more mature developed team so that it can be productionalized. But I have to think about a lot of things, and it's just not a model for my data itself. It's like something that will be used by everyone. So like things about pros and cons of which data to choose, or which model to choose on this data. Can it be deployed properly? I need to talk with data engineering people to kind of understand how my model would fit in the entire pipeline, which is easy to deploy, which one is not. So it's not just looking at the accuracy, you have to think about a lot of things. And yeah, I am really enjoying working on these projects.
So I want to go next. And the thing is, after hearing everyone, I have a totally different path. Not only the career path, I had the location change also. So I have been moving from India to US a lot. So it so happened that I got my degree in US, and then immediately I had to go back to India, and then something else started there. So I would say my introduction to, before that, let me go a little, some few years back. I got introduced to programming when I was doing my second master's. So you can imagine when I started. So that was my interaction with programming in C. So at least I got to know what exactly is programming. And then it was a 7 years gap. I was working as a faculty, and then and I worked as a faculty in India as a math faculty. And then I again came back to US. Then I started my MBA, and during my MBA, I was doing internship with IBM as incentive analyst. So my introduction to numbers and analysis started from there. So I was incentive analyst, and I was crunching numbers a lot. Based on that, the salesperson was given incentives, and I was using Excel at that time, so no programming. And then again, I was, after doing my MBA, I went again back to India. So at that time, I was clueless about anything like data science. So even programming was a big thing for me. So then I went back to India. I struggled a lot for a job of my choice after doing my MBA. So for a couple of years, I was looking for jobs. And then one day I realized that, okay, I have to formulate my own problems. And at that time, this data science field was evolving, or it was gaining momentum, I would say. So I heard about it. I said, okay, I know Excel. I should make my own problems, and I should start analyzing those problems. So I got interested in Indian IPOs, and I started reading their prospectus. I started collecting the data from there. So I started the data collection also. So I made some my own parameters. I formulated my questions, and I made my Excel CSV files. And then I started, even at that time, I used Excel. So during that time, luckily, I did some good analysis. My analysis got published. And then I got interested in working with data. And then I came to know about some courses in Coursera. So I started with them. And again, I started with working with financial data. And then I got introduced to Python programming. So at both, not only I started doing data analysis and learning Python programming. And at that was the time when I got really my interest moved to data science. So I started learning courses. So I don't have any qualification as such in data science. I didn't work in data science, but I am an independent, you can say I'm an independent learner and user of data science. And I'm a practitioner also. So from there, I started uh, working on my problems. And then I started learning courses on Coursera. I learned R programming. I started working on different data sets. Then I got involved. Then I again came back to US. I started working at a Bay Area startup. And then I was doing some kind of analysis work there. And I again started, I was really passionate about learning new things. And I learned it on my own. And that's how I upgraded my skills in data science. And then I got involved in New York City Open Data. So I started doing events with them. So after that, at that point, I realized why not, as I learned, as I struggled. So it must be, a lot of people must be sharing this kind of problem. So then I started my own company because my mission was to, so I started my own company. Now my company's mission is to teach all these data science skills, customized in the form so that even right from elementary school students to adults can learn this. So they can start very early so that they can take data-driven decisions and they can get introduced to this field and they get prepared for the future. So my students, in the last 2 years, we have been working with elementary school to high school kids, doing so many workshops. Globally, we have conducted workshops in AI. We got funding from Association of Computing Machinery. And I'm right now working with the University of South Carolina for their data science summer camp. We have been working with adults also because while talking to many people, I realized during this pandemic, people want to upgrade their technical skills. And they have been realizing that, okay, we want to bridge this gap. And we want to bridge this gap by doing some short-term courses. So we conduct short-term courses so that the people, the adults who just need a little upgrade in their skills. They already have a long work experience. So this is the mission of our company, and we have been doing data science. So I'm more of a data science teacher, practitioner, and I love this fields. So that's my journey.
All right, thank you to each of you for sharing your journeys. I think it's amazing how unique each of them are and kind of where you started and where you are now. And the journey is continuing, so I'm sure career shifts and all of that always happen, but I think there's a lot to learn and grow from there. So we did touch on this sort of as you guys were sort of explaining your journeys, but just another question about transitioning to data science. So has being a woman impacted your transition to the field of data science? And if so, how? And to add on to that, have you ever sort of experienced imposter syndrome? And if so, what advice would you give to other women that are pursuing the field, both of how has being a woman impacted this transition and also sort of managing imposter syndrome?
Sure. I'll go first with Angela. So I think my answer is kind of one answer for both questions. I'd say it did impact me a little bit. And my advice to everyone else and kind of what I've learned from this experience is to believe in your abilities. I know, especially in the beginning of my career, I definitely allowed myself to be kind of overshadowed in the beginning by my peers who, were maybe a bit more confident and vocal about their data science knowledge. And I allowed myself to just assume that meant that they had a higher skill set level than I did, that they were more skilled than me. But I learned through time and just kind of day-to-day exposure that wasn't true at all. I discounted my skills when they were just as good, if not more advanced than the others. So I know now to not be hesitant to trust my abilities and skills and to challenge others if I disagree with their approach. So just believe in your abilities. I think this might just be me, or maybe some other women can relate, but I think I definitely have a tendency to underrate myself. So keep that in mind. Know your skills and believe in them.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what you've said. In terms of being a woman transitioning into data science, I'm not sure if it's specific to data science or more specific to being a woman, but I definitely feel like that impacted it a bit. I've had situations at certain jobs where they were using language around talking about hiring a manager, calling the manager him, and hiring juniors and calling it them. And I remember calling this out and being like, have you interviewed anybody? And they were like, no. So they'd already made up in their mind that the manager was going to be a man, and all the managers in my team were men. So this made sense. And most of the juniors were women. And I feel just like situations like that, it's just how certain people think about you. However, as I've navigated through my career, I think I've learned how to suss out if a company is going to be like that when I interview with them. And it doesn't hold you back at all in a company that isn't set in those kind of thinking. I think that's quite an important thing to learn early on, like learn where they're going to value you. Like you as a woman, but you also like with the skills you bring to the table from past experience is very important as well. And different companies will see the value in that and not expect you to have a computer science degree and a PhD in data science if you don't have one. In terms of imposter syndrome, I have horrible imposter syndrome. It comes and goes in waves quite ridiculously. I have quite a few stories I can tell you about jobs I've turned down when they've offered me them because I've been like, I'm not really sure why you offered me this job, so I'm going to turn it down. And yeah, it makes me laugh a lot. I actually went to do a PhD to try and help my imposter syndrome, and it made it a million times worse for about 2 years. It made it so much worse for 2 years. And then I kind of overcame it, and I actually overcame it by starting my own business and having to advocate for myself and having to say that, like in a room, say that I'm the best person for this job, even if I didn't believe it. And I think you just come through it. It comes back every so often. I'm looking for jobs at the minute, and yeah, like I again have it again. Practice helps. I find if you have enough cool stories to back you up, and you've done interviews a few times and you've advocated for yourself in end of year reviews, it does get easier. Having a community of amazing people around you also helps. I've got great friends. Whenever I'm feeling a bit down, I tell them and they big me up. Communities like Women Who Code as well, like those kind of things are invaluable to overcoming imposter syndrome.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for sharing your journeys and kind of explaining your experience of how it is being a woman in this field and imposter syndrome and trying to manage all of that. I'm continually impressed by how much we are able to sort of, take from our experiences and learn and then take it to the next job that we are looking forward to. So that's kind of closes out our section on transitioning to data science. So next we'll be moving into using statistics specifically in data science, and I'll pass it over to Sumana for that.
Thank you, Rishika. And thank you, speakers, for a great first section. I learned so much about data science not being just for computer science students. That's what my understanding was before this panel, at least. And it's really nice to see women from different careers coming in and establishing themselves in a certain field. So it's super empowering to hear your stories. Thank you for sharing them. And our next section is about statistics in data science. I think that has been the core focus of the last 6-week series on establishing the importance of data science importance of statistics in data science. In data science, finding a structure in the data is one of the first integral steps that you need to do to be able to understand your data and then create a prediction model for it. A lot of people just apply all prediction models for all data sets and don't realize that there is a structure involved to that. And I feel statistics is a super integral part of data science, machine learning, and artificial intelligence because of this. So one question that I have for the speakers is, do you have any anecdotes or any stories about what made you realize the importance of data science, of statistics in data science and artificial intelligence?
Sure, I can go here. And as Sumana, you said, absolutely, I agree with you that we need to understand the data first before we start modeling. And most in real life situation I have seen, understanding the data takes almost majority of the time. Like once you have done that, applying the model is the most easiest part. So and for anecdotes, yes, so again, I come from a very pure physics background. So there is a course that we are taught, which is like all the math you need for physics and all the statistics that you need for physics. And when I was doing that, I was already doing things like hypothesis testing, naive Bayes, regression, graph theory, and I was doing graph theory a lot in my thesis. And I did not know that graph theory is what knowledge graph is, and which is based on like what Google's PageRank algorithm also uses graph theory. I had absolutely no clue about these things because I always thought that these are very hardcore computer science things. And once I started talking with my fellow computer science and statistics student in the lab itself, and they were like, oh yeah, we would be, we can just apply this here and draw up this model. And I thought to myself, wait a second, I have been doing this in my physics model as well. So it's just same concept, but different names. And so I can also do this using the same simulations or the same modeling that I was doing, and they are using Python. So I don't have to learn Java or C++ from scratch. So like, oh, like, great, this is like, so this is usefulness that I can pass on. I can also contribute to this project and not just say, oh, this only works for physical systems and I have absolutely no clue about real world data. So yeah, that's like, that was the realization, the bulb goes on, and like, now I have so many open questions that I can answer and I can apply. Like, that's when I realized that the skills I was already learning is transferable and I can apply it to so many different problems. And yeah, talking, and my professor also, like, talking with him helped me understand. And he was like, yes, everybody is so siloed. Like, computer scientists want to use their terms on their things. Math people want to use their terms in their field, but nobody wants to everybody is using the same logic and same concept. We can use it for so many different problems if we are not just thinking in a siloed manner. That's an experience for me. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point. Statistics is translatable across domains. It's a really good thing to remember. For me, I definitely have a couple of anecdotes kind of from earlier in my career. First, I'd say diagnosing predictive models it's really important to understand statistics when you're doing that. I remember in the very beginning of dabbling in predictive modeling, I'd get really excited when I'd build a linear regression model that had a low p-value, significant p-value. And then I realized soon, kind of the hard way, that the p-value alone is not enough to conclude that your regression model is actually useful and actually will classify well. So, you need good other stats for that too. So often in your experience, you will be asked to try many models and kind of choose the best one, and you'll need stats to support that decision. And then, of course, hypothesis testing was kind of the focus of my talk a few weeks back. So big advocate for that. A lot of good applications for hypothesis testing, and you need the stats for that. And then finally, I would say even in basic interpretation within reporting analytics, statistics is important, and reporting analytics is one of many elements to data science, so still super important. But being able to interpret those stats and even potentially educate others on how to interpret those stats is really essential. I had an experience where I had to kind of take a very unique position in one of my projects on a data science team to educate several stakeholders and leaders in the company that looking at the average of this particular measure alone was not enough to really understand the true performance. In this case, it was performance of a provider. It was like a provider performance report. We had to kind of drive the point home that you need to also look at a measure of consistency, such as standard deviation, to understand, these two averages between these two providers could mean very different things. So it helps to have some even just very basic, just descriptive stats to help push them forward and how they looked at these reports. And that's it.
Yeah, I agree with Angela's point. Like, you don't even have to go like deep, hardcore statistics to kind of convince anyone. Like, even just saying, look at the mode or the median instead of the, average, or what is the standard deviation? What is the error bars? Even those small things are just very relatable and very simple to explain, even without going too much into, I built a random forest model and I can't explain what this is.
Yeah, that is so true. It makes a big difference, I feel, knowing, like when I learned in high school, I think I was introduced to mean, median, and mode. I didn't realize how much I would be relying on it at this point of my career, which is pretty crazy, but it's amazing how things can be simplified down into such core concepts, and we can make decisions and derive insights from those core concepts. Thank you for your answers, Madhurima and Angela. They were super insightful. And along the same vein, another question that I have is, kind of similar to what I said on my understanding of mean median mode then versus now has completely changed. Is there something that has, what is your thought on how stats has changed from when you were introduced to statistics as a subject versus how you're actually implementing it in your career right now? And I'll open this up to the panelists.
I could go on this one. So whenever I learned statistics in high school, I thought it was great. So statistics in high school is very simple calculations and getting some data from a graph, which is wonderful. I then did a mathematics and statistics degree at university, and I hated my statistics modules. I was required to take one per term, and I hated them with a passion. I did fine in them. I thought they were so boring compared to applied mathematics. I have some insight into why now, but yeah, at the time I was like, statistics and probability is stupid. Like, I don't want to learn this anymore. It's just stupid. And then I went and worked as a data analyst, and I obviously do a lot of statistics in day to day. And whenever I started preparing for my session last week on the statistics for unsupervised learning, I realized what I actually think of statistics now is a way of thinking of things. So a way that I approach my data analysis, and that's what I've learned from my statistics training. So my little sister is actually doing a master's degree at the minute, and she's doing medicine, and she's having to analyze data. And like, I can look at what she's trying to do and split it down into 5 really simple logical steps just like that, and she can't. And of data she's looking at and why, and like whether it's categorical or not. And I realized that's what I actually got from studying statistics, is I think about things in a really particular way, and that's the best way. And actually, like, I like statistics again now. So that's my attitude towards stats these days.
That's awesome. I hadn't really thought of it that way. You're right. It's like it's a way we've been trained to think about things. It's really great tool. I'm kind of in the same boat as Sumana, where I used to think stats was just simple, descriptive stats, like what you hear on the news, or, sports stats that you might hear while you're watching, sports game or something, basic percentages and averages. It wasn't really until my undergrad that I learned stats as its own separate world of beautiful, complex mathematics, which can be used in advancing technologies and is being used, at many companies to continue to be competitive. And the other thing about stats that I never would have guessed initially is it almost has a creative element to it. Coming from mathematics to begin with, I assumed everything was very black and white, cut and dry. But with statistics, there's a lot of room for debate and like your approach. Like, you can accomplish the same thing with different statistical approaches, and they can have their own pros and cons. So you have to come at it with a bit more of like just judgment and, personal judgment and experience. So it's kind of a creative space too, which was really surprising, but I really like about it.
Thank you for your answers, Angela and Laura. I really like the way Laura put it, that statistics is a way of thinking. Like, you just start thinking about it that way. And when you're talking to people who are not from a statistical background, that's when you kind of realize that you're thinking about the problem extremely differently from others. But thank you for your answers, all speakers. And I think that comes to the wrap for our statistics in data science portion. I'm going to pass the ball back to Rishika for our next section.
All right, thanks, Sumana. So our next section of questions will focus on mentorship. So I have had, because I, came from a field that, no one around me was in computer science or taking engineering classes or math classes. So I definitely had to find people to, to be my mentors, or to at least go to for advice when I was trying to take classes in computer science, and to eventually sort of hop over into this field where I was like completely lost and I didn't know what was the right thing to do or what was the current industry that everyone was trying to work in. And so I think mentorship is extremely important no matter what field you're in or what you're trying to get into. And I think I felt that especially as women, we, are able to create a very strong sense of community, and Women Who Code has definitely helped me in that. I, unfortunately, with the pandemic, never actually met a lot of people that I consider that, I can go to help for or advice, but hopefully one day I can actually meet them in person. But going back to the idea of mentorship, the first question is, did you have any mentors in your own career journey who were life-changing? And as a follow-up, what should one seek for in a mentor?
So I can go first. So honestly speaking, I never had a mentor because I have been switching not only locations, I was switching my field also from math to finance and then teaching and then industry. So I never had a mentor, but definitely or luckily you can say I had people around me who guided me. So you definitely need someone, or you can always reach out to someone with questions or with doubts. But I don't I don't strictly recommend having, if you having mentors. So even if you couldn't find a mentor, it's not a bad idea that you can explore things on your own. And then if you come across any obstacle or any questions, there are so many forums available, right? This is the best time to learn something new. Because at my time, not only this, even internet connection was a big challenge. So leave talking to people. So across the countries, it was not something which I could dream of, talking to people. But nowadays, things have changed so much. You can always reach out to people, and people do respond. So if you reach out to 100 people, definitely I'm pretty sure 75 will respond. So try to talk to people whom you looking at their profile, trust. Even if they are random people, you think they can guide you, just reach out to them, send email, or if you can talk to them personally, that's fine. But if you get a mentor, that's fine. You are lucky enough to get a mentor. But if you cannot get a mentor, then it's not the end of the road. So that is my recommendation, because I am a self-taught person, but with guidance from people. So that's my takeaway. Yeah.
I can go next. And I agree with Vandana is that it's not always like I did not have my PhD advisor till I started my PhD. Before that, my close friends with whom I was just learning everything, even though they were in different cities, like we have been friends since undergrad and some from high school. Like if I did not understand any topic, I would just call them up and be like, do you know this topic? Can you help me out in this topic? And it's not necessary just in data science. It could be in anything that you want to learn. I think it's more important to have that interest in learning and never stop learning about something that interests you. It's kind of a cycle, sorry. But there will always be, like, I have had great, amazing friends who have always been there, like guided me as to starting from how to write your resume to how to solve any problem that I'm stuck with, or can you proofread something, and even those small things, not like huge career decisions. Obviously you need support for that, but even practicing interviews, as Laura and Angela mentioned, practice makes it much more easier the more you practice. And even if you don't have somebody telling you, okay, you should be doing A, B, C, D, you can just try it out by talking to people and figuring it out. But along with that, I would always also say, like, I was extremely lucky to have my PhD advisor, who is an amazing person. He always supported me. He always said, okay, fine, you can try out different things. And, it's okay to collaborate. And I learned a lot from him, like about collaboration, about life in academia, about life in general, life in industry, and how to just we would never just only talk about the research project. We would talk about a lot of things. So I would say that, and don't feel discouraged that you are the only, like, let's say, woman in the room. Like, if you want to learn something, just go for it. And Angela mentioned this earlier, is if you keep your skills sharp and you practice and you know what you know, it will strengthen your confidence and it will increase your credibility. Like, it won't be like, oh, okay, I am speaking this and I have this reasoning behind why I'm speaking it. So that adds to your credibility. And just anything that interests, just don't stop learning. Even self learning can be a great tool, and I'm pretty sure all of us here have done a lot of self learning. So that would be my advice, or suggestion, not advice.
Yep, and I can go next. Those are great answers, and it's making me rethink how how to phrase my answer that I was thinking about, because I think the point that's consistent is, it doesn't have to be, seeking mentorship in the total strict, description of the word. It can be just purely organic, and as long as you keep reaching out to people, you might end up building these relationships with people organically and not even realize at the time that they're your mentor. It's just kind of general support. So I will say, from my experience, I was fortunate enough to have organically met mentors throughout my career. In college, it was certain professors that helped me through. And then in my industry experience, a couple of bosses that have really kind of stood by my side and gone to bat for me, and given me great advice. One of those particular previous bosses is continuing to guide me in my career. So I kind of think of this person as a mentor, but it's not like an official label, I guess. But those things will tend to happen as long as you keep open to conversations and support with other people. Just, try to maintain community and communication. I will say, without that kind of support, I definitely would not have made it as far as I have. I would have probably gone a completely different route, maybe even taken the easier route in some cases. And mentors are good because they help you navigate some of the more like behind the scenes complexities of maintaining and excelling in a job. For me, specifically around like aligning stakeholders, management of projects, job culture complexities, other soft skills like that, is really where I got value out of having this type of rapport with someone. I will say, with a mentor who is your boss, it can be tricky because the boss has to be very like selfless and have your best interest in mind, because they might, his or her advice needs to be independent of his or her own desire to keep you on their team. Because some bosses, they're concerned about the productivity and the performance of their team. So obviously they're not going to tell you to go elsewhere, even if maybe that's in your best interest. It's just kind of a specific example that I've certainly come across, and I've had selfless bosses / mentors who have helped me navigate those situations. But yeah.
Yeah, I've had quite a similar experience to Angela again, actually. So when I worked in data analytics for WorldPay, I moved teams after a couple of months, and my previous boss, kind of stayed on as my mentor. So we still had weekly meetings for a while, and then that kind of like got less and less, and now we're just friends. But what he was actually mentoring me in was more that, like, this, they say soft skills, but like not actually the coding and the data part of it, but more the how I communicated with people, how I managed like the situation I talked about earlier, wherever I felt the team was being sexist, like how I managed things like that, because I was quite young then, and I had to manage myself properly. I was just really useful things he taught me, like you can't always just be pointing out things that are wrong in the team without offering solutions, or it sounds like you're complaining even though you're trying to be helpful. And that's advice that I've actually passed on to loads of my mentees since then. I think it's great advice. You can think there's something wrong, but if you're not offering solutions, it doesn't come across well to everyone else. And just things like that. It was more just yeah, from me being younger and like earlier in my career than him, it was more career stuff he was mentoring me in. I'm also a self-taught developer, and I've never really had a coding mentor. I like learning things by myself. One of the things I would say when looking for a mentor is that while it can be one of your friends, if you want objective advice and if you want someone to kind of be steering you and like helping you make decisions, it shouldn't really be one of your friends, and you should kind of think of your relationship in a certain way. However, I have loads of friends that act as my mentors. So like I'm looking for a job at the minute, and I called up some ex-colleagues to talk through my CV and my options, and that is mentoring. But like you said, in a more organic form of mentoring. I think when you want to have one person that you see as your mentor, who you go to with all your work stuff and your situations, that's a completely different relationship, and that actually needs to be someone a little bit removed from your job. So like Angela said, not necessarily your boss, but also not one of your friends or colleagues. That's just my opinion, but I think that's how it works best.
Yeah, definitely. I think mentorship can come in different forms, and the way you form that relationship with a mentor, as you mentioned, can be a very organic, natural way of someone who's a friend or a colleague or an ex-colleague or someone that you sort of very intentionally reach out to, that you might not know in advance, and each have their own sort of situations where you would reach out to that mentor for, and kind of what kind of advice you can receive from each of those kinds of mentors. So yeah, thank you for sharing your insight on that. And to close out the mentorship section, we actually asked our panelists in advance if they would be open to mentorship or providing guidance on seeking mentorship via Slack. So let me just share my screen really quick. And on this slide here, this is all of the Slack handles for our panelists. And so we have Angela, Laura, Madhurima, and Vandana, and these are their Slack handles. Feel free to take a quick screenshot or a picture of this. And so they have said that they are open to anyone in the audience reaching out to them for mentorship or guidance on how to seek mentorship. And so this is really nice of our panelists to do and sort of provide that for our audience today. So I'll just leave this up for maybe 10 or 15 more seconds just for everyone to get a picture of it or a screenshot of it. And then I'll pass it back to Sumana for our next set of questions. Okay, hopefully everyone has gotten a chance to take down our panelists' Slack handles. And with that, I'll pass it back to Sumana.
Thank you, Rishika. And we've reached our final section of our panel, which is, I guess, the most coveted one, which is the careers in data science. Everyone wants to know how to break into the industry and so on. So we've kind of framed this from 2 points of view. The first one being what we should work on as a job applicant and what we should look for, what hiring managers look for, so that we get like a whole rounded view on catering to the hiring manager's experience. And since we have a diverse panel over here, each of them will answer from the job applicant point of view if they have experience, as well as from the hiring manager point of view if they have experience. So the first question would be from the job applicant point of view. And for some personal flavor on this, I come from a software engineering background. And when it was time for me, after I educated myself on data science to secure a job in data science, I kind of realized the way I prepare for an interview is completely different from what I was doing in software engineering. The way the questions are framed are completely different. It's a whole new ball game, pretty much. So in that vein, the question that I have for all the panelists over here is, as a job applicant, what kind of qualifications or characteristics helped you to secure a job in data science? And I'll open this up to all the panelists.
I can go first. I was actually looking for a job in 2019, so it is still fresh in my memory. So as a job applicant, there are a few things that I realized, and this is a common theme. I'm just going to talk about the common ones. So the first things that I realized is different for a data science job is the hiring managers are trying to look for the ability that you can analytically interpret the data and like drive insights from it. To make it more simple, it's more like problem solving skills, because in most of the times the problem statement is not defined. Like it's not, okay, here's the data, do a classification problem, or here's the data, we need to do a forecasting, or using regression or random forest. So it's never that. It's always some kind of, I would say, business speak or business ask, which you have to understand to kind of boil it down to what concrete data science or machine learning problem can that be, and how can you convert that business ask or industry, whatever it is asking, to that, like, I would say in terms of like, how can you convert it down to an algorithm? Because that's what you can solve. That's what you can research. So that is most important part. And then trying to get to the data and understanding what the data is trying to see. Like, do we need more data? Is this data sufficient enough? So understanding what the data looks for or like is trying to sell you is what like I mean by drive insights from it. So these were the like most important things, and a lot of it in for my job, a lot of times I have to do research on like, okay, this model doesn't work because the data is not what you expected. So what other things are there? So again, a little bit of research side on there. But apart from that, strong statistics, mathematical background, as we have gone over and over, like statistics is very important. Coding, definitely, like either like Python and SQL is at minimum. If you know R and C++, that's brilliant. But I knew Python, R, SQL, C++, but Python and SQL would be the bare minimum that was required, and working in a team setting. Because as a data scientist, you are never going to work alone on one problem. So you have to work with data engineers, and like whatever model you're building, that needs to be productionalized, that needs to be deployed somewhere. And you need to work with DevOps person, you need to work with data engineer, you need to work with ML engineer or ML ops person. You need to work with stakeholders to, and then present what you have done there. So like there are going to be a lot of technical and non-technical presentations. So a lot of presentation skills are also required. But working in a team is definitely something that I have been asked for. And you will be doing this, like you will own your own piece that you have built and you have to convey what you've done. But at the end, it's always a teamwork when you're starting from the business asks to, okay, this is a product that I can see on my that I can use on my interface. There are lots of people involved, and it's not just the data scientist. Hope that helps.
Thank you, Madhurima. That was really insightful. And after listening to your answer, I kind of realized that problem solving, it's not problem solving, it's creating the problem statement, which is one of the biggest things that we need to do as data scientists, because there is business asks that come in, but then we need to translate that to something that we understand and the developers understand, which can fit into the product.
Yes, agreed. Yes, that's like the difference. Like you have to go from an extremely non-technical version to an extremely technical version, which you can like code up or like write equations for, whatever terms is correct. But yeah.
Yeah, I think anyone who asks me for this question, I'm definitely going to be adding creating the problem statement skill and communication skill, like you said, is definitely really important. Like not being stuck on terminology that's present only within data science, but being able to communicate that to people and folks from non-data science backgrounds is extremely important, because we can do all the cool research that's possible, but in the end, it should sit in the software somewhere. And we need to do a good job in communicating that and getting that in. So thank you so much for your answer, Madhurima. That was super insightful. And I guess the next question is kind of going to focus from the opposite point of view on the hiring manager. So the question here would be, as a hiring manager, what kind of qualifications and characteristics do you actively look out for in candidates that you're interviewing?
Yeah, sure. I think that my answer is going to actually overlap a lot with what you all have just said so far, just to kind of drive home these points. I will go over a slight distinction between what I would look for in a beginner versus someone who's intermediate or expert. So for beginner, I'd say more than anything, I look for aptitude, because I don't expect a beginner to have a lot of experience. And even with technical skills, I kind of expect, limited technical skills, just any kind of educational program that you went through and got some exposure to some different tools, and have proven that, you got through those situations, successfully. So instead of more advanced on that end, I look for enthusiasm for continued learning, a general proven technical aptitude from previous programs, academic or otherwise. And I do look for some basic stats knowledge. So definitely brush up on your basic stats. Some things I would probably ask about would be, how to acquire a representative sample, the importance of understanding distributions, maybe talking about different types of distributions, whether they're skewed or not, things like that. And then also asking about, which analyses are most appropriate for which data types, I think is another key thing that has to be pretty solid as a concept to come into this kind of role as a beginner. In addition, I do look for general aptitude for project management, kind of the ability to string together concepts from, as been said, an unknown problem statement to, defining the problem, setting the goals and milestones, and then finally presenting and delivering the strategies and solutions. So to assess this, I might ask the candidate questions on how he or she would proceed with a project given a certain business problem. So like a case study type of thing, like a case interview. So maybe do some practice online for, case study questions, so that you can understand what are the right steps to take as you express, how you would approach this business problem. So, what would be the first step? How would you go about gathering requirements? How would you go about communicating the result? All of those types of things. For intermediate, I would look for more or less the same as above, but more with the proven experience in these areas, as well as the proven technical abilities, such as, completing a data science project end to end, including the project management piece, technical development, testing, and implementation, whether it's direct implementation into the software or supporting implementation, working with DevOps software teams to get it implemented. So I need to see some of that type of experience for the intermediate level. And for an expert, it's the same, but it's all about kind of supervision. Being able to lead projects end to end with minimal supervision is what I would look for in an expert. But even then, like the technical ability, I would want proven experience, probably at least the same as intermediate, but I wouldn't be necessarily looking for someone who has, I wouldn't require a super advanced level of technical ability. More I'm looking for the independence and autonomy in that kind of role. The technical ability can always be researched and gained in the job. So that's it.
Yeah, just to add on to that, yeah, for a beginner, definitely not looking for any experience in a specific data science role. I've learned that you can kind of tell by reading CVs if people really understand what data science is. I'm not 100% sure I can express that in what I can tell when I read the CV, but I can tell if someone knows what a data science role actually is and if the role they're applying for is actually right for them. I would say this: anything you put on your CV, make sure you can stand up to questioning. Quite often people say they can write SQL and then you give them a really simple example and they can't do it in front of you. Very simple, like there's a missing where statement in this, can you fix it? And just be really careful. I find that particularly with beginners, people tend to put that they're intermediate in Python or something when they've taken one class. So kind of be honest in what you're looking for. I guess speaking I've kind of based how I look at it from how I'm treated. So I've noticed when I apply for jobs, it's my qualifications and the fact that I have 2 big companies on my CV that gets me into an interview. That's why people agree to interview me. That's what my CV ticks off for people. So I have a mathematics and stats degree, a master's. I work for PwC and WorldPay, which are 2 massive names. However, in the interview, it's always the weird little ad hoc things that I've done that I think win me points. So like the fact I've done a lot of survey design and things. I randomly interviewed for a company that was doing surveys, and I would never think to bring that up, but they specifically asked. And just like lots of random things on your CV actually sometimes is the thing that someone connects with whenever you're talking to them in an interview. So don't discount little projects you've worked on or other things that you've done. Problem solving, to add on to this, is the most important thing, I think, at all levels. So someone being able to talk to you about how they were given a project at work and it was this abstract project, and they were able to deal with it, whether that's in a specific data science role, or I know a lot of people are trying to change careers. You can talk about problem solving from a different job and it's still relevant if you know the data stuff. So problem solving, discussing, working in a team. When people ask you for examples about projects, that's the kind of stuff they want you to be talking about in an interview. Tell them how you made the decisions, how you work together, how you solve the problem. Generally, like for any roles in data science like that I've hired for, I'm not usually hiring for an absolute beginner, so I do expect a little bit of coding ability, and I probably do set a small challenge. But again, I'm a big advocate that you should be able to use Google, because there's never going to be a point in your job where someone is staring at you being like, can you write this code? And you never have to remember how to write code. But that's just my opinion. I also wanted to say that quite a lot of data science jobs do actually ask you for a degree or a master's or a PhD, and I don't actually think that that makes you better at the job. However, it gets you into a lot more job interviews, or being able to say, here's my GitHub with my code on it, or here's this, here's some Kaggle competitions that I've entered. Some companies do ask for that. I've always taken the view that if they're asking for that, I don't want to work for them, because that's not how I think about things. But that's a decision for you to make. I know there's a lot of questions coming up. Do I need a master's? Do I need a degree? If you don't have one, then the company asking for it currently isn't right for you, because they're asking for it and you're not the right person. So maybe when you're thinking of applying for stuff, think about it that way a little bit as well. I hope that was helpful.
Thank you, Laura and Angela. Those were very insightful questions, and kind of, I think, rounded up what from both ends what the expectations are, so that the person as a job applicant knows what to apply for. And one recurring thing that I kind of saw across both the answers from the job applicant point of view and hiring manager point of view, some recurring things that I saw was communication skills, being able to communicate with other members, showing that you can work in a team, being able to problem solve really well. Having some things from tech stack, which are data science related, Python, are something that shows that you can code, if anything. And also side projects are always appreciated. Being able to have some GitHub projects, even from statistics courses that you're doing right now. These projects do add value to your profile and shows the hiring manager that the skill set that you would like to show them. So thank you so much, panelists, for answering this question. These questions, I guess, it gives us a good idea on, it gives the attendees a good idea who all are trying to break into the data science field on what to expect and what to be able to target. So thank you for that. So that comes to the end of the 4 big sections that we broke down this panel into. And we're going to get into the Q&A section next. So I'm going to pass it on to Rishika so that she can kick off that section.
All right, thanks, Sumana. So we do have a nice set of resources prepared to share with all of you. So you should have the link to these slides, and this is a free bundle of resources that we have. And so this basically contains different, sorry, let me just think my, okay, my screen has gone blank. I'm not sure if you can still see the slide properly. Maybe it's just on my end. But anyways, so the free bundle of resources. It contains links to all the webinars from the data science track, free online courses by some big name companies and other reputed people, YouTube channels, as well as some other resources collected by various people, like books, tutorials, and similar resources. So hopefully everyone can take a look at this free bundle that we have put together. Definitely a lot of very helpful items contained in there, all the way from YouTube videos to past series that we have done from this track. And so with that, we'll be going over to our live Q&A section. And I'll kick it off with our first question. We'll have just maybe one panelist take every question. You can just feel free to unmute yourself and answer if you would like to, just so we can get through as many questions for this for the live Q&A. So the first question is, do you consider if my current role has no relationship with data science or analytics, should I move to a role now that I have only a boot camp, or should I get more experience before moving to a role that's related to data science? Would anyone like to take that question?
I can take this if yeah, it totally depends on the role you're in and the role you're being offered. I think when it comes to boot camps, I would do a lot of research before committing or paying or giving up your job to go and do a boot camp. You can find a lot of information online about past graduates. Obviously, some are wonderful and have really great schemes, and they are geared towards getting you a job. Others are not. I'm not going to name any names because I'm not recommending any, but I would do your homework. I'd also check that they don't need anything from you. There are a lot of boot camps at the minute that require their pound in flesh afterwards. So you must work for X company for a year, or you owe us this. So just do a lot of homework. If you're being offered a data science job, even if it's very junior, my opinion is experience trumps everything else. So it trumps any qualifications, any boot camps. Learning on the job is so much better. If you can get your foot in the door that way, then go for it.
All right, thanks, Laura. That was extremely helpful. And Sumana, if you want to take on the next question.
Yep, I'll take the next question. Some information for the attendees. If there are any questions on this list that you are really interested in getting the answer for, upvote them. We're asking the order of the most upvoted question, and there are quite a few questions here, so we'll try our best to make our way through it. Okay, so the next question is, how do you navigate establishing yourself as a data scientist when every job description seems to have different definition of what data science is, ranging from data processing, SQL, Hadoop, ML, statistics, etc.?
With difficulty.
It was funny to see all the panelists have a smile on their face when I was reading that question.
It's so true. I think it just really depends on what you're interested in the most, because all of these different fields are still a valid part of data science. So it's really, I think, about, do you want something that's more, statistically, like statistical analysis, doing clinical research, things like that? Do you want to be doing publications, and that kind of thing? Or do you want to be doing more, programming and machine learning and things like that? I am always an advocate to say that I think learning data processing and statistics is a good first step, because I think it will help you in your success as a machine learning engineer. But that's not to say you have to take that step first. So I think just, wherever your interests lie most, they're all totally valid parts of data science. So any of those are good.
Thank you, Angela. Passing it back to you, Rishika.
All right, so the next question we have is, I have 20 plus years of SAS and SQL experience and strong skills in those. I'm pursuing learning Python currently. I have had a little experience in predictive analytics. I would like to learn what I can without pursuing another degree. It's late in my career to invest that much time into a degree, but I'm willing to do the hard work in learning. What are the top three things you feel I should concentrate on? It sounds like Python is a good one to be in those top three. Any thoughts?
Okay, I can try to answer. So basically, yeah, pick any language. This is the topmost thing which you are already doing. My personal experience is start working on different data sets. And because this is the best way you learn, every data set has a different characteristic. So pick any problem, whether you pick it from Kaggle data set or go for any challenges, or even if you try to recreate, do the same problems which are already been solved by people. So this is my recommendation. The more you do hands-on experience, the more you learn. That is the only way, apart from getting a degree, because that's what I have been doing. I already have 3 master's degree. I don't want to get any data science degree, but I learn a lot while practicing on these kind of problems. So that's my suggestion.
All right, thank you, Vandana. I'll pass it back to Sumana for the next question.
So the next question is how to take up projects in data science, which can help us implementing the knowledge that we've learned from such webinars and courses. Yeah.
I can go. I would say I would echo what Vandana said, like hands-on experience. Like if you want, there are lots of publicly available data. Like and even messy data is available. So you can just take up any of the data set. Just try things like it's, and maybe today you apply some regression model, the next day you take another data set where you do some classification model. I think doing it hands-on will give you more understanding, and at least for me, I read something and I'll forget it unless and until I actually do it by myself. So I learn more when I am doing the problem. So that's how we can, like, at least I, like, if I learn something, it can be any theory. Like, let's take hypothesis testing. Hypothesis testing as a theory, it's great, but I would not understand how hypothesis testing can work on my problem that I'm trying to, unless and until I do it hands-on or try to solve that problem. So hands-on is the best method, I would suggest, to get experience.
Thank you, Madhurima. I'll pass it back to Rishika for the next question.
All right. So next question is, what would you say the general attitude is for hiring data science bootcamp graduates with no technical experience prior to attending the bootcamp? In your experience, have they been looked at as lesser during the hiring process?
I'd be curious to know what others think about this too, but I can tell you what my attitude towards it is. I don't know how much I can speak to the general attitude, unfortunately, but that wouldn't bother me at all. Like, I actually think that would be great, because especially for a beginner role, all I'm looking for from a technical perspective is exposure and proving that you can learn something in a short amount of time, which I feel like is exactly what a bootcamp is. In someone with that little experience, I would be more asking questions like for general problem solving, communication skills, enthusiasm, that kind of thing, because the job is just going to be another technical boot camp in a way, where you'll just have to be learning quickly on the spot. So yeah, I think it'd be fine.
Yeah, I echo that as well. I don't think there's an issue with hiring someone from a boot camp. I would just say that I don't think a boot camp ticks the boxes for jobs that ask for some other qualifications. So maybe just be mindful of that. So and think about where you're applying. So if someone's asking for a degree, I don't think you can apply with a boot camp and they'll think it's the same thing. However, boot camps are very useful because you learn very like specific skills for specific things. Yeah, I don't think it's an issue, especially for a junior role.
All right, thanks, Laura and Angela. Give it back to you, Sumana.
Thanks, Rishika. So quick information for the attendees before I jump to the next question. I know we're running a little bit over time. So we're going to, I don't know if we'll get time to answer all the 31 questions that are still there, but we'll do our best to answer the top few at least. And I apologize for it running over. Thank you so much for sticking around. So the next question is, I have a long career break as a stay-at-home mom and getting back to finding a job in data science. What role in data science will help me get a job quickly?
Okay, I can answer that because I faced this problem many times, not just because of being stay at home. There were other reasons also. But I would suggest that start with a data analyst job, because becoming a data analyst, I'm not undermining anything, but it's easier to learn things. It's easier to apply things. It's easier to get with the results data analyst job would be a good starting point. And I cannot comment on whether you will get the job easily, but definitely it's going to help and it's a good starting point.
I just add something quickly? I'm not sure where you're based, but definitely in the UK, there are a lot of big companies that run returner programs specifically aimed at mums who have taken career breaks. And I know where I used to work, WorldPay, they came straight into the data analytics department. So maybe if you looked at those type of schemes, that might help you get a foot in the door somewhere.
Great answers. Thank you, Vandana and Laura. Passing it back to you, Rishika.
All right, thanks, Sumana. So next question is, I'll be 52 next month and I'm trying to get started in my third career after educational software publishing in academia. However, it has been difficult getting my foot in the door, even with a quantitative PhD in political science. Any advice?
I'm getting kind of a strong internal response here, so I'll go ahead and share it with you. First, I'm sorry you're having such a hard time. I think what would be important is having those basic skills, as we said, SQL, Python at minimum, any proven, hands-on projects that you've done, the ability to string together concepts, which with a quantitative PhD in political science, I imagine you can do. So I'm not sure what your technical skills are, but maybe just work to prove those out. And the rest shouldn't be difficult. If at that point you're still having a hard time, then the companies you're applying for that are turning you down are probably not companies you want to work for anyways. So just keep that in mind.
I would echo what Angela said, like think of the transferable skills that you can prove that you have gotten from, past experiences and even from your PhD. Like, well, I came from a very computational physics PhD background, but I was already doing a lot of similar things that I could just say, okay, I have not solved exactly these problems, but I have solved similar problems using all the methods that you're looking for. I think being able to communicate that you already have those skills that you can transfer could be helpful.
All right, thanks, Angela, Madhurima. I'll pass it back to you, Sumana.
Thanks, Rishika. So the next question here is, as a self-taught person, how do I lay out a path to follow as I'm learning? I struggle because there are many options and several things that can be accomplished at the same time. I learned Python because I was able to find the resources, but I'm doubting to start with R or Python.
I can try to answer. Basically, yeah, I know there are so many options. But if you start learning and exploring, I realized that after a while, I started shortlisting because after going through a couple of these sites, I realized that no, this one is much better than that one. So go for something that is more, gives you more hands-on experience, like working on the real data. So that eliminates the confusion. So I really liked Coursera courses and MIT EDX. So I still remember one of their series, it was called Analytics Edge. And this is one of the best courses in data science I've come across, because they start from scratch. And then by the 10 weeks, they end with a random forest. So you can start from data analysis, like a beginner course in R, and then you end up learning all the high level concepts. And they have made it very, very easy. Anybody can understand. And regarding R in Python, I have seen Python being used a lot. And regarding R, if you are doing, you can use any of the languages. But R is geared more towards biological data sets. I think it's more useful, what I have found. It may not be true. And Python is, again, both of them are easy. It's totally up to you, but I have found Python being used all the jobs or all the courses I've come across. Python is used more. So I hope it answers your question.
Thank you, Vandana. And to add some a comment to that from my end, I learned R first, but I barely use R right now. I use only Python. So it's more about your comfort level with the language and which area or domain you're applying that language in, like Vandana mentioned, which kind of directs you which direction you're going to. So I would suggest try out both, see which one you're more comfortable coding with. That would be the best option. Passing it back to you, Rishika, for the next question.
All right, thanks, Sumana. The next question is, can you talk about some steps to start a company in data science related, your insights on that possibly?
Well, you should know the field first and what you want to do. Because my background has been in teaching, and I struggled a lot because I was making so many transitions. And when I started data science, I had so many barriers. I didn't have any formal qualifications, although I worked on so many problems. And then I realized that I had the age barrier also. Uh, so, so then I decided to start my company. And since I had the teaching background, so I thought it best to make it a teaching company. And regarding data science, I don't know. I cannot very clearly answer. But what I found out, if you start your company, you get a lot of freedom. And that is the best part. Whatever aspect of data science you want to work on, you can do it. Whatever your strengths are, you can play on that. Whereas if you are applying for job, a lot depends on the other person. Whereas if you have a company, you are in charge. So you don't have to depend on anyone. You don't have to look forward to anyone. The decisions are your own decisions. So I would say these are the things which you should remember when you are starting a company. And always look for the field where you can contribute, or you have a niche. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Vandana. Sumana, I'll pass back to you.
Thanks, Rishika. Okay, so the next question is, I'm self-taught in programming and data science and several years of experience as an analyst. Do you have any advice on career progression? I've been considering a master's in data science, mainly to build my confidence in statistics and understanding ML maths. Do you think this is necessary, or is it better to learn on the job?
I think I've said this before. If you can get a job and get experience, experience counts for a lot more than a year of studying. However, in terms of confidence, I can't really comment to whether having a master's degree will make you feel more confident. I know tons of people that it does make feel more confident. So I think you need to weigh up that for you individually and see what you feel like. Maybe apply for some jobs and see if you get them. If you don't get them, then maybe thinking about applying for a master's might be the way forward.
Thanks, Laura. Let me pass it back to Rishika for the next one.
All right, thanks, Sumana. The next question is, when we come from a non-technical background, we have a lack of confidence that we can work on real world problems. So when did you say to yourself, I can do it? And what convinced you to say that?
I can answer that. Definitely, there are some prerequisites for data science. What I think, maybe I didn't realize because I already had a mathematics and statistics background. So I would say that if you have basic knowledge of math, statistics, and programming, then you can say that, okay, you are ready for data science. So definitely, basic knowledge is definitely needed. So if you are from a non-technical background, you can you can enter a data science field, but just make sure you have all these prerequisites. They are not very hard to attain, but definitely it has, because otherwise you will start getting frustrated. You won't be able to understand the basic things.
All right, thank you, Vandana. Sumana, I'll pass it back to you.
Thanks, Rishika. Note for the attendees, we are running quite a bit over time, so we're going to cap it at the last two questions now, whatever is on the top two. For the remaining questions, you all have access to our Slack channel as well as the Slack handles of all the panelists. So feel free to note down any questions that haven't been asked in live and ask them on Slack, and they'd be more than happy to answer your questions. So moving back to the question, the second last question, Rishika will be asking the last one. So the question is, I'm a self-taught programming, oh, this is already done, I'm sorry. Okay, so the question is, for non-STEM graduates interested in data science, how do you advise learning statistics, especially needed for modeling evaluation?
Probably try and find a course on Coursera or something and follow it along is the best advice I can give you. Random self-plug here. I actually have 2 courses on Coursera on statistics for social scientists. They cover like t-tests and correlations and ANOVA, which are really basic stats. So if you fancy them, they do exist. But yeah, there's loads of really great courses from some really great universities in statistics on Coursera. And other online platforms. I would just find one and find the one that works for you best and follow it. Yeah, and like join groups and post if you've got questions, post in forums, people will get back to you. Yeah, use the online resources there for you.
Yeah, to add to Laura's point, Stack Overflow is an amazing resource. Like, I did 50% of my thesis coding by just doing Stack Overflow, how to do this in Python. So how to do this here. So yeah, there are resources and like free books, free articles, like if you want to learn more about basic statistics. So yeah, also I know that Women Who Code also have lots of YouTube and YouTube videos and articles and books, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sumana, but there are lots of statistics-based things out there.
Thank you for that plug, Madhurima. Yes, we do have like a lot of ML and statistics related courses. It's part of the free bundle, so do explore them and see what's there. And thank you, Laura, for the answer too, for this question. I'm going to pass it on to Rishika for our last question today.
All right, thanks, Sumana. So our last question is, how do you gain the industry experience? For example, logistics or finance related data analytics. I see some jobs that require a candidate to have 2 to 3 years of experience in the industry. If I want to get into this area, how can I gain the knowledge and convince the hiring manager that I have the experience and can do the job?
I can definitely appreciate the challenge with that. A lot of companies that claim their entry-level positions that they're hiring for, but they're still asking for some experience. So it's kind of that endless cycle we've all seen before. I would say that I had a thought on this. I would say that, I mean, for me, it was an internship, so I'm not sure like from which position or where you are in your career. So for me, my foot in the door was an internship while I was still in school. There might be internships that don't require you to even be in school right now. It's just something that gets your foot in the door and gets that exposure to that kind of work. The other possibility is if you can get a job that is related to your current skill set in a company that is based in logistics and finance, that could be your foot in the door to say, and then your next step would be to move into the actual position in data analytics, just showing that you're from a company that focuses on that industry. You'll be able to speak the language going forward. So those are just some ideas depending on where you're coming from.
All right, thank you, Angela, for answering that. And with that, that's all of our questions, our prepared questions, and our live Q&A. Thank you so much to the 4 of you for being here and for staying overtime as well, and really, sharing your stories and your experience. And I learned so much. I'm sure everyone in the audience learned quite a bit. And thank you for also being open to providing mentorship or seeking guidance on that through Slack. And this has been a wonderful series. I hope everyone, all the attendees enjoyed the 8-part series. Thank you again to all the panelists. Thank you to Sneha for organizing this entire 8-part series. Thanks to Sumana for co-moderating this with me. Yeah, I think that's it for today. I hope everyone has a great rest of your weekend. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sumana. Thank you, Rishika.
Thank you, Sumana, Rishika, and Sneha.
Take care, y'all.
Thank you all. Have a great weekend.